We've been looking into the book of Acts to see the emerging Pentecost spirit as it spread throughout the Middle East, starting in the disciples, then in other of the Jews who converted to this Jesus movement. And we've seen the beginnings of this controversial, painful transition where traditional Jewish Christians are being asked to accept the possibility that Gentile men should be treated equally. A huge step. The next step that I suggested would be when Christianity would accept that women are equal to men, and 2,000 years later, less than half of Christianity has made that step. But that was far from the only controversy. As we look a little bit more closely into some of the realities of the early church, we're going to look at this passage from Galatians, a letter of Paul to churches that he helped found or inspire, grow. Churches he served for a significant portion of his early ministry. We'll read together these few verses. I'll be reading aloud. I'll be reading the words in yellow, and when you're reading aloud the words in white print. This is Paul writing to the church. As for those who were held in high esteem, whatever they were makes no difference to me. God does not show favoritism. They added nothing to my message.
On the contrary, they recognized that I had been entrusted with the task of preaching the gospel to the uncircumcised, just as Peter had been to the circumcised.
For God, who was at work in Peter as an apostle to the circumcised, was also at work in me as apostle to the Gentiles.
James, Cephas, and John, those esteemed as pillars, gave me and Barnabas the right hand of fellowship when they recognized the grace given to me. They agreed that we should go to the Gentiles, and they to the circumcised.
All they asked was that we should continue to remember the poor, the very thing I had been eager to do all along.
When Cephas came to Antioch, I opposed him to his face because he stood condemned.
For before certain men came from James, he used to eat with the Gentiles. But when they arrived, he began to draw back and separate himself from the Gentiles, because he was afraid of those who belonged to the circumcision group.
The other Jews joined in him in his hypocrisy, so that by their hypocrisy, even Barnabas was led astray.
When I saw that they were not acting in line with the truth of the gospel, I said to Cephas in front of them all, "You are a Jew, yet you live like a Gentile and not like a Jew. How is it then that you force Gentiles to follow Jewish customs?" It's called the Incident at Antioch. A word of advice: if you ever get a phone call offering you a free trip to Paris, make sure you understand whether it's Paris, France, or Paris, Texas, or Paris, Illinois. There's a Paris, Indiana, and the new Paris, Indiana, and somewhere close to Paris, Kentucky, Martin W. Stone helped found the first of the Christian churches. There are more than one Antioch in early church history. Particularly confusing because Paul's writing to the churches of Galatia, and there is an Antioch in Galatia. But when he writes about this incident at Antioch, he's talking about the other one. It's about the difference between Paris, France, and Paris, Illinois. Antioch in Galatia is a small community. Antioch, where the incident occurred, was boasting 250,000 people in the first century. Imagine 250,000 people in a metropolitan area without running water and public sewers. It was in this Antioch, a big Antioch, where we're told believers were first called Christians. Paul is writing to the church in the midst of a defense. I don't know if you've ever felt like you had to defend yourself, your reputation, your legitimacy. I often have felt that the moment you start to have to defend yourself, you've already lost. But Paul takes his best shot. He's writing to the churches in Galatia, trying to validate himself. Why? Because he had spent all those years preaching, teaching, building up, shaping the churches, and his model, his theology, his gospel has now been under attack by some of these people from Jerusalem. The circumcision group, he calls them. Those who still insist that if a Gentile is going to be a true believer in Jesus, they have to observe basic Jewish traditions like circumcision and others. His whole gospel, Paul's whole gospel, has been under attack by people who said, very cleverly it seems, we appreciate Brother Paul and all he did, he just got a couple of things wrong in his enthusiasm. So we want to build upon what he's done, and we want to correct a few errors, and we want to bring you into the truth. And to some extent, we begin to see how quickly years of work can be torn down. Certainly, a lot of this was Paul's passion for the simplicity of the gospel and the power of Jesus Christ. But certainly some of it had to be ego. And so he writes, he tells his stories of who he was and how he came. With what authority did he speak? And we just read part of that. I love the way our passage begins. Basically saying, okay, there are some highfalutin people, big names that everybody knows, but who really cares? God shows no favoritism. They're not more important than I am. But I was validated by Cephas, Peter, by John. I was validated by the people who matter. Those original disciples, they shook my hand. They recognized God at work in me, and they sent me out with their blessing to the Gentiles, to you. But you know, it's hard to convince people who to believe. All you got to do is change channels on television. Do I believe this news station, or do I believe that news station? Do I believe this party or that party, this candidate or that candidate? Do I just turn it all off and watch an old movie so that I don't have to decide for myself? Paul is fighting a fight for the gospel, for the souls of the church of Galatia, and for the future of the Christian church. And he's fighting a fight to restore his own reputation. The incident at Antioch is very pointed. I almost wondered, did he really have to bring this up? But here's what he's saying. Everybody loves Peter. Cephas, the Holy One. Everybody loves Peter. He's the head honcho. He carries a lot of weight, but guess what? I stood up right in front of his eyes and called him a hypocrite. Why? Because he was a hypocrite. He came to Antioch and he worshiped with us and he loved us Gentiles that we were. He loved this Gentile church. He loved the Spirit of God that was alive and moving there. And he just ate whatever was set before him in a Gentile meal. He wasn't worried about Jewish traditions and the clean food laws that had been passed along for generations, the kosher laws. He just relaxed and enjoyed the fellowship and the Spirit and the love until the police came. Those guys sent by the Jerusalem circumcision group. And then Peter changed. He pulled away from the Gentiles. He quit eating with them. He started behaving like a good Jewish boy. Hypocrite. Hypocrite. I think it's fascinating. This incident at Antioch shows the church almost at its worst. We see Peter revealed to be what Peter has always been, a hypocrite. Braver than any of us, I'm sure. Wiser than most. But this is the man who has boasted before of his faithfulness and his devotion and his commitment and his superiority, and he failed so miserably on the night that Jesus was arrested. Hypocrite. Apparently, you can be a believer and be a hypocrite. Apparently, you can be a leader and be a hypocrite. Apparently, you can be a star and be a hypocrite. Called on the carpet by Paul, who many of us would agree was one of the most arrogant men we've ever read about. Probably because he had to be, to fight all of the doubt, all of the attacks, all of the confusion, all of the people undermining and trying to destroy his work, why he didn't quit, had something to do with his arrogance. You know, when we gather and we celebrate the life of a loved one who's passed away, and we know they were a little stubborn or arrogant, we find kinder words to use. Oh, that she was a determined soul. She knew what she believed, and she wasn't afraid to tell you. Paul was arrogant, confident, often confused, and yet he was a key ingredient to the future of Christianity. The early church, the great pillars, arrogance and hypocrisy. When you do your family tree as a Christian, you got to remember up there with the grandfathers, arrogance and hypocrisy. No absolute purity, no pure righteousness, no perfection, no extraordinary harmony. These people were living real lives as real human beings. They had conflict, they were confused, they failed, they were flawed, they argued, they attacked. They were just doing the best they could to figure out what it meant to be Christian in their world, given their challenges, emerging from their own history. About 100 years ago, Christianity in America was looking for a new something and decided to launch off in this thing we call the Restoration Movement. A lot of disciple Christian churches embraced it. We're going to restore the church to its first century splendor. As if they hadn't read the New Testament at all. Splendor. They were reading the propaganda sheet. They weren't reading the human side of the diversity and the division and the reality of what it means to try to be a person of faith in the real world. As for me, set the fairy tales aside. Don't try to talk to me about a perfect age and the good old days and the great days of the church and how pure and spotless and perfect we were in the days of the Acts of the Apostles. It's a fairy tale. The true courageous story of Christianity have been people in their full humanity trying to figure out how to be Christian in the real world. "2,000 years later, we still have people talking about the golden age of Christianity. Let's go back to the good old days. I don't know when they were. Oftentimes, it's 60 years ago when women and people of color and the gay community knew how to keep their own place and stay out of the way of the superior ones among us, to keep peace and keep shut. But whatever those good old wonderful great days were, they were a fairy tale. At their best, and some of you were there, human beings in their hypocrisy and in their arrogance and in all their flaws, still finding enough faith and enough courage to try to be the church in the real world. That's what the world needs. We don't need fairy tales. We don't need illusions of perfection or hints of superiority. We just need to figure out how to be Christians in the real world. dealing with real people, acknowledging our real limitations, our real flaws. Because the world can spot a hypocrite a mile away. You might as well wear a t-shirt. I'm not perfect. It's not about me. It's about a God who loves us even though we aren't perfect. It's about a God who keeps trying to teach me the truth of that love and the extent of that love and how to share it with other people. It's about a God who keeps breaking down my barriers and teaching me lessons and helping me somehow help others in their journey of faith. The incident at Antioch in itself should destroy any illusion of some first century harmony and clarity about the future of the church. As each person and each faith community encountered this emerging Pentecost spirit, it is changed, it is interpreted, it is filtered through individual experience, through our past, through what we will accept and what we won't let go of, through our own biases, our own prejudices, our own weaknesses, our own limitations. We don't have to live up to some imaginary past. We have a big enough challenge living up to today. And if anything comes out of the last 2,000 years, I suggest it's that the Spirit of God is up to that challenge. No matter what culture throws at us, no matter what changes around us, no matter what obstacles we have to face, no matter how distracted we are, the Spirit of God can emerge through it all. That's the lesson of the Acts of the Apostle. Not that the church was perfect or its leaders were perfect, where there is some perfect model to follow, other than to somehow discover what it means for each of you and for all of us to tap into what that Spirit means and what it's calling us to do and who it's calling us to be. Let's pray. We've been amazed our whole lives, oh God, and how you're able to use an imperfect vessel to carry your Spirit. We have had to accept it because we've seen you at work in ourselves. Sometimes it was a relief to be able to point at our own hypocrisy and weakness and limitations and excuse ourselves from service, but you keep finding ways to use us anyway. And for those precious moments in which we've truly been part of your Spirit moving upon the world, we are truly grateful. We felt truly alive. We find true hope and joy. And so we offer ourselves to you, oh God, once more. Hypocrites that we might be, arrogant fools at times, people just looking for excuses once in a while. But we've experienced